Hey folks, today's show is brought to you by Postage.net. Hate going to the post office? Hate standing in lines? Hate licking envelopes? I joined Postage.net 3 years ago and I haven't licked an envelope since. For $9.99 a month, Postage.net will literally send a man to your house with a malfunctioning inkjet printer. He's going to print your documents. He's going to address your envelopes, and then he's going to lick them. And you know what he's going to do after that? He's going to go to the gosh darn post office and mail those suckers, because that's the Postage.net promise. Go to Postage.net/Bantha Fodder and use our code SHILL to get no actual discount. It's purely used to track our reach as advertisers. That's Postage.net/Bantha Fodder. Promo code SHILL. Postage.net, because post offices suck.
When was the last time you actually cooked something? Seriously, do you even know how to use the stove in your kitchen for anything other than dishes overflow? Well, our friends at Goodbye Tasty want to show you how to use that thing. I get Goodbye Tasty boxes sent to my house every week, and the easy follow directions not only give me clear nutritional info, but also give clear instructions on how to turn on my stove. Maybe you don't have the same model of stove as I do. That's fine. Goodbye Tasty sends you delicious ingredients sourced straight from their processing factory and a book of manuals for every stove ever made. Maybe you don't even have a stove. That's okay too. Everything sent to you in Goodbye Tasty's convenient meal kits can be microwaved to a servable temperature or simply thawed. Goodbye Tasty offers you and your family of cats a fun cooking experience that makes you feel like a real fancy chef. This week, I made Salisbury steak with a side of mashed potatoes, and next week, I'll be having more of that because it's all they have. Goodbye Tasty makes it easy to heat up processed meat on a weekly basis. To sign up for your Goodbye Tasty subscription, visit goodbyetasty.com and enter offer code SELLOUT to receive 15% off your first year of delicious meat patties. Goodbye Tasty, because cooking sucks.
Do you have a job? Wait, no. Do you have a business? Are you the only person that works at your business? Is it literally just you in an empty room, clacking away at your keyboard, longing for human contact? Well, look no further than Zap Hiring. Zap Hiring figured out how to aggregate every single job recruiting board on the internet. It's honestly shocking that no one branded this sooner. But they're going to find you a coworker, maybe even an HR department. Zap Hiring, because tacking job listings to corkboards at coffee shops sucks.
On that note, let's talk about our sponsor, Jasper Mattresses. Man, did my back hurt. Every sleepless night led to a morning of agony. When Jasper called me up and said, we got a bunch of foam pads and we figured out how to squish them down into nothing and then cram them into a cardboard. Oh, God. Then Jasper called me up and said, we got a bunch of foam pads and we figured out how to squish them down into nothing and cram them into a cardboard box. Want to help us sell them? Obviously, we said yes. They sent us a mattress. I took it out of the box. It went from being really small to really big. I slept on it. Does my back still hurt? Well, yes. Does Jasper want to give you 100 free nights on one of their mattresses to see if it possibly cures your backaches? Yes, they do. Go to jasper.cool and use our code LiteralGarbage to make your mattress a Jasper mattress. Jasper, because sleeping sucks. God damn it.
All right, let's start the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to Bantha Fodder. We're on episode 24.
24.
I'm Mike Kamate.
And I'm Jacob Tender.
We are at part 3 of our quest to examine one of what I consider the most prolific fan editors of our time.
Indeed, Mike. I think you're right. We're talking about DigModiFicaTion here, a.k.a. Dig, a.k.a. Digman.
A.k.a. Diggity Dog.
Diggity Dog. This is the editor who gave us classics such as Heir to the Force and Rise of the Rebellion. The past 2 episodes of this show have talked about both those edits, so if you have not listened to those, I would suggest listening to them before listening to this, because that's all we're talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in terms of Star Wars news. I mean, the list goes on as we lead up. I think we're a month from Last Jedi right now.
Yep.
Did you buy your tickets already?
Yeah, I bought tickets for 2 showings the first night. My first showing, I think, is at
Dude, you're sick.
I know. I think my first showing is at 9:30, and then my buddies were down to do another one. So as soon as that one's over, I think there's a 10-minute gap or something, and then we turn around and go back into hopefully the same theater and watch it again. It's going to be a good time.
Oh, my God.
And I only have one final the next morning.
Ugh. I really hope it's not one of your finals for your major.
No, it's geology.
Okay.
It's the geology lab, so it'll be fine.
I am flying back to Boston to see this, and I was thinking of buying tickets for opening night, but I I land at 8:45 and the showing is at like 9:45, and there's no way I would make it in time to get a good seat because there's no reserved seating at my place.
They finally opened it up at mine, which is a relief because otherwise we would have been bad shape.
Oh man. So I have tickets for Friday night, not Thursday night, 10 p.m. at Jordan's.
Well, it's because you're traveling, right? So it just didn't work out this year.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'll be quiet. I'll be really tired, actually. I'll be watching the movie, staying up to study, taking my exam at 11, and I'll be sleeping all day. So by the time...
My Twitter feed is going to have to get blocked.
Just don't open the app.
Yeah, I guess I might have to just delete it for the day and not be on Facebook because somebody's going to spoil something. 150 minutes?
Yeah, 150 minutes, which is long.
2.5 hours.
Long to see twice in one night, but I'm willing to do it. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be good.
I don't know how you're going to do this. We got a long interview with DigMod, and it was really great. We pre-recorded this, so we're gonna transition into that slowly, and just stick around to the end because Dig's got a lot of pearls in discussing his views on fan editing and his take on the recent Star Wars films.
Super awesome guy. This is an awesome interview. It was cool to break our interview cherry with him. I'm looking forward to everybody actually taking the opportunity to listen to this. I think there's some gems in here too for people that are aware of the edits and have been following along with Dig on the forums. So if you're already kind of aware of his stuff, you might get some cool little tidbits in here too. So enjoy.
All right, here we go. So, Dig, welcome to Bantha Fodder.
Thanks for having me.
What time is it where you are right now?
Oh, it's 5:20.
It's 5:20, and then over in our time zone. So that means we're in a different time zone. Do you feel comfortable saying where you are in the world?
Oh, I'm on the West Coast, not in Canada, a little bit below.
That narrows it down.
All right.
Fantastic. Just so we know ahead of time, are you going to want us to like obscure your voice or anything to keep you anonymous?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay. All right, good.
It's a forgettable voice, so.
Well, we're glad to have you. Our last 2 episodes have been sort of a series of conversations about your edits, your fan edits for Rogue One and for The Force Awakens. So you're here to close it out. I'm hoping that we can ask you some questions to get a little insight into the world of fan editing.
Of course, yeah.
Oh man, Mike, where do we even begin with this? I guess probably let's just start with you, Dig, and we got some approval before the call here to start calling you Dig. I guess we had it right all along, which is awesome. Tell us, like what you can about you, like where did you get into this kind of stuff? What's your daily life like? Does this stuff play into it? Just give us a little bit of background.
I love music and I love video, and this all really started with Audacity back in the day with audio, and some bands that I really liked. And some people think this is a little funny, but the language isn't always my favorite thing. So I would see if I could create some of those, those clean versions of stuff. And so I would mess with the audio and try to create tracks out of it. And then it was fun. And then I just gravitated over towards video after, I watched The Lord of the Rings. And I think that was like high school for me. And I just wanted to switch a few things around. And I was working on this old computer. It was trash. But it perked my interest. I was using Movie Maker back then. And then I dabbled with some Matrix edits and The Dark Knight when that came out. And so it's kind of like just in the process, just a love of movies and music. And then realizing as technology was starting to, allow us to actually mess with this stuff, that I could change things and make it how I wanted it. And so that's kind of how I got to the obsession. And I'd say it's that, because it's not a daily part of my life that I do. So I teach, and so this is kind of a hobby when I get time, which is not very often lately. So yeah.
You mentioned you got your start by editing like bands and music. Was there any specific genre? Because you said like a language wasn't your favorite, so you're like doing cleanups or anything like that. Was there a band or song in particular that you remember?
Well, I mean, there is. I don't know if I want to say it.
Okay.
Yeah, because
I mean, I'll give you. I was tweeting about Limp Bizkit this morning and yesterday about how much I was looking back on my. I was reminiscing on my 20s because I'm 30 now, and I was like, I wonder what band will turn out to be my Limp Bizkit. Because when I was in my 20s, I realized Limp Bizkit was very, very bad. It took me a long time to realize. But so I was just trying to realize. So no shame, in liking bad bands or bands that cuss,
The first CD I ever bought at Best Buy was Nickelback, so it doesn't get a whole lot worse than that.
That's what you like. Right? No, it was the band Incubus.
Oh, dude,
yeah.
yeah, that's great.
So I'm of the same generation as you. Now I put an age. Now they're zeroing in on me.
It's okay.
Disney doesn't listen to our show. That's very clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, I love the Limp Bizkit song "Boiler."
Yes.
Yeah, that was like that guitar tone. So I'm a guitar person. That's an awesome rock guitar, metal guitar tone, and love the Incubus work and just some of the ways that they would describe things. I just don't do it myself, and wanted to listen to it around my family at the time, and so I had to make it more accessible.
That's really cool. So it seems like, I mean, if we trace that back to your beginning of editing, it seems like, yeah, like you kind of see the way the world is, and you just want to change it instead of just kind of just living in it or having to deal with it or trying to make your family understand something that you basically molded your surroundings to what you wanted to be, which is actually really cool to think about for me.
Yeah, and it was really fun because I had friends that really liked the bands that I did, and I would share it with them, and they'd be like, wow, this is awesome. I shared it on the actual band's board once, and they never came after me, so I guess they were okay with it, hopefully.
That's awesome. And so you were talking about, kind of like working with video with like Lord of the Rings and movies like that. Did anything ever come of that, or was that just kind of like for your own personal viewing?
The Lord of the Rings one, that was like back when it first came out on DVD, and I don't even know what the computer was, but the hard drive fried, and so I never returned to that one. But I've done the Matrix ones. I don't know what happened to those. And then I have an Indiana Jones one for the Temple of Doom. That was kind of the same approach as the music, like making it family friendly. And that one's kind of in limbo. I've been waiting to get a Blu-ray of it. I don't know why I haven't bought a Blu-ray of it.
Oh, nice.
So it's like it's standard quality, and I just never wanted to release it until it was HD. But yeah, there's some stuff on the back burner. I've got like a Game of Shadows, the Sherlock Holmes, the odd camera angles that were in the woods, like the camera work in there.
Which one is that?
It's the second newer Sherlock Holmes with
Jude Law and Robert Downey.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I really like the story, but they just had, when they were running through the forest and like had the body cams, and it was just really awkward.
Mm-hmm. Like out of place.
Yeah, exactly. Like it just didn't. It's like if you were having a movie and then all of a sudden it went into first person for 5 minutes and then dropped out again. It was just kind of distracting. So I wanted to take that part out and just focus on the story that I actually enjoyed. So. Yeah, but there's a couple things that are on the back burner still.
What you mentioned your first rig, which is since fried. What are you using now to work on these edits?
So I use a laptop, which will get some laughs from people probably. But it's just a Windows 10, with an i7. It's a 4th generation quad core, and then I just got 16 gigs of RAM in it, and then I use what used to be Sony Vegas, and now it's just Vegas Movie Studio. So I use that. I haven't dropped the $350 on the Pro just because I've done the trials and I don't see the benefit of it for what I do. And then I just use various programs to like rip the video and audio. Just a normal setup that someone might use for gaming.
It's incredible the things that you can pull off on a laptop now.
Exactly, yeah.
It's nuts. I was listening to another podcast today, and they said something about being able to like completely remaster and like I don't know what the terminology is, but I guess the technology is now to a point where you could completely generate Toy Story on a laptop in like real time without a problem on just like a normal consumer laptop. And that just, I mean, that's crazy. And it, I'm sure they're going to have some kind of like crazy remaster out soon with even better graphics, but it's just nuts to think about the stuff that you can do on a computer like this,
Well, that's, actually it's funny that you say that, because the crawls that I do and the edits that I make, I tried to make those for years. I tried to do them in Movie Studio, and I tried to do it, even on Movie Maker back in the day, and I never could. But then I found Blender, and then just watched some videos and was able to make a template.
For listeners, what's Blender?
Oh, Blender, it's a open source. Is that right? Or it's not open source, like free to everyone program that some developers, like teams, have made over the years. And so it's a full 3D graphic creator program. I don't know what they're called. I'm not really a graphic artist, but you can use it for really any media. You can put video in it, you can put audio in it, or you can produce 3D like animation within it.
I think it's free too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, open source, right?
Yes, open source.
And as far as that template goes, am I right in thinking that you put that on your website for other people to use?
Yeah. So on fanedit.org, that's the base community that I'm at. There, there's a lot of us Star Wars nerds there, and so I just wanted to like give back, because there's lots of collaboration that goes on there, and people would really help me. And I thought, well, let me see if I can figure this out and share it. And so I think I made it, and then someone else did like a revisited model of it. I think his name's Jack Pumpkinhead, and he's over at originaltrilogy.com. But so there's two different versions that's free to the public to create their own crawls.
And what's the difference between the two of them?
I think his, I tried using his a couple of times. I don't really know. Like they look really similar. His, I couldn't figure out, to be honest. It's supposed to be easier, but I couldn't figure it out. So, and sorry, I'm not knocking you, Jack Pumpkinhead.
Well, I think naturally yours is going to be easier to use for you because you made it.
Exactly.
So that's, yeah, that makes sense.
I think what it was, like you could load the star field into the background, where mine was more of a green screen approach, to where you would get the text, and you would, in your nonlinear editing programs, you'd drop in, the video file that you made, you'd chroma key it. So you'd select the background, remove it, and then it would scroll over the top.
Oh, okay. That's fascinating. I know so very little about video editing. We, for a short time, were putting this podcast on YouTube, and that just required me updating a couple of letters in like a very simple format of text and image, and I had a hard enough time with that. That is
your computer was not in the best quality, at that point. That's
true. Yeah, I was using that early 2011 MacBook Pro. It's just not having it. That took like 3 hours to bounce, just like a 45-minute audio podcast video
with this like one frame background, right?
I think in total it had 2 frames, because it had like our logo that would come up at the very end of it and maybe the very beginning of it, but most of it was just that single frame that's the name of the episode and the thing. I should get that caught up, but now that I have the iMac, but someday. So, Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
This is a Star Wars podcast. Should probably talk about Star Wars. Where does your fascination with Star Wars come into play? When did you become a fan? What is your background?
I can't remember a time in my life that we weren't watching Star Wars. So I guess it's always been there, and that was like the family fantasy movie that we watched. And I grew up out in the country, so we would pretend like we were Ewoks and stormtroopers, and had a brother, and we beat each other up. Jedis and Sith. And the Empire always won because he was the Empire.
Oh God! It was an older brother, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, older brothers always want to be the bad guys.
He was good at it too. He's a good guy now.
That's good.
Yeah, so I mean, Star Wars has just been something, musically it's amazing, storytelling is amazing, and just an integral part of my experience, I would say.
Do you remember the first film you saw?
Oh, I'm sure it was the first one. I mean, the first one I remember watching as a kid is Return of the Jedi. Probably watched that at least once or twice a month.
In our first episode, Jake and I talked about like our first viewings of Star Wars, and mine was on like a TNT or like some type of cable special, like all weekend or something like that. And Jake, you were like a family's house or something like that, or?
Yeah, I think it was. I think my parents played it for me as a kid. VHSs.
Yeah.
I remember VHS.
I still occasionally watch them on VHS.
We got those, the first remastered before it was a special edition. I think, was that in 95 or something?
95 or 96.
Yeah, Christmas we got this TV that had a VCR in it. That was for our room, and we just wore out those tapes.
Mike, was it your first, when you watched it on TV, was that the one with Leia as like or where they had like Carrie Fisher explaining bits and pieces from behind the scenes?
Yes, yeah, I think it was like Sci-Fi Channel. Actually, now that I think about it, we have the link. I found the archive of it. Like somebody actually did a VHS rip from cable and then posted it onto a forum somewhere, and I was able to watch it again. We have some audio clips of it in the first episode.
I found that again because I've been recently downloading a lot of like the documentaries, some of the older ones, and in doing so, I found that one again. So that might actually be in my Plex. You might look around for that.
Oh my gosh, I can just go relive it on my big screen. That's awesome.
If not, I will find it for you.
Thank you so much.
Mike, you're into the documentary stuff?
Jake is really hard into it. Like Jake is, yeah.
I have a Plex server that's just like full of Star Wars stuff. It's actually a problem. I now have no more hard drive space because of all these edits and all of Harmy's edits and all of these documentaries. So it's filling up very quickly, but I put them on there and I let Mike watch them if he so chooses.
Gotcha. Okay. Have you watched I think it's by Jamie Benning. He does the Building Empire. Yeah, those are pretty excellent.
Yeah, actually, I've got all of those in there, and I recently ripped his like shorter pieces as well, like the one about Jabba the Hutt, like the people that were actually inside Jabba the Hutt, the Return of the Jedi filming locations, the behind the scenes with Yoda, and then he did a short one on Biggs, and I made covers for all those too. I'll put a link in the show notes, but those are on the Bantha Fodder website, just in case you're a Plex user and you want to put those in there too. But yeah, his stuff's good. So why fan editing? Obviously you have like this background editing some other films, but why did you decide to take the knife to Star Wars?
I think really it was, there's the Jar Jar Binks. I think
there's the Jar Jar Binks.
And you'll notice I've never successfully been able to make a prequel edit because I don't know what to do with those. Be honest here.
Have you checked out like the Phantom Edit and those other ones that
actually the Phantom Edit was, I think, the first time I realized that I could do something about Star Wars. It used to be like, oh, I'll just watch this and fast forward. But yeah, that was something that just watching the prequels kind of spurred me on. And then, I had dabbled in some other movies, but when The Force Awakens came out, I didn't read the novels very much growing up, but my brother did, and he'd tell me all the stories. Mm-hmm. And what came out of it, I was just kind of disappointed with the lack of originality to the story. Like it's visually great, and it's awesome to have Star Wars, but it felt really safe.
Yes.
Some of the cheese, as you guys have mentioned about.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel like Star Wars to me. It kind of felt like I didn't see my generation in it, so I suppose that's why I took the cheese out the way that I did, because that was like my experience with Star Wars and just how I would interact with friends growing up. Like we didn't talk like the characters did in The Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to get rid of that stuff. But it was really when I remember watching it in the theater, and when Snoke said, he revealed that Kylo was Han's son in the first, I think it was 25 minutes in. I felt like that was a huge missed opportunity.
Oh my God, yeah! I remember in the theater, I think I remember my heart sinking in the theater when that scene happened. I was just like, it was like a collective, not a shrug, but kind of like a collective sulk of like me and the rest of the audience just being like, oh, okay, that's a mystery solved, I guess. Like,
well, and they spent so much time like building this up. Who was he? Is he Luke? Is he Luke's son? And so that was what I wanted to bring back into it through that edit, was some of that mystery. And I know some of it worked, some of it didn't, but it was just fun trying to see what it could have been.
I think you succeeded hugely there. Like, I think it was, I don't know. It even if you don't feel like it did it exactly like perfectly, I still felt like it gave us a taste of what that could have felt like. And I was really like stoked on that feeling.
Well, thanks. Yeah. I looked through it a bit today, and I think my thing as the editing side is just a lack of footage because I feel like that interrogation scene is the part where the edit, I wish I had more, because it had to reuse a couple of shots.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions I had. It was if you could change any of the source material, like if you could ask for anything, like just snap your fingers and have a scene be present for your edit. Is there any like bit of dialogue or bit of footage that you could have used, or like you're like, oh man, this would go really great here, but it doesn't exist?
Ooh. It's honestly, if someone out there has an amazing Kylo Ren cosplay, that I just need some side shots and front on shots with the handout, and it's for the interrogation scene. If I could have that whole scene with him with a helmet on his head, and with the actual audio that the studio produced for his voice, because that was a nightmare to get it close.
Oh yeah. So you're saying is the Rey interrogation scene?
Yeah, I think that, or I could live without it, and I just wanted to see some more X-wings.
Dude, I feel you on that one. I feel you on that.
Because I felt like we in Return of the Jedi we had the entire fleet there for this little tiny Death Star, and here we've got this massive thing. And
yeah, there was no. It's so weird to me. I feel like there was no like outer like perimeter defense for Starkiller Base, which is insane because the First Order has a fleet, why wouldn't that be parked outside of Starkiller, just chilling, waiting for any assault, like 12, it's like a 12-man squadron, I feel like, that assaulted that planet.
I think someone was doing an edit of it, and I think if you zoom in, like there's little tiny Star Destroyers.
Oh.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look, but I think there are like little tiny digital Star Destroyers like hanging in the orbit.
So we can get some cosplayer just to just throw on like the costume and just like do that, because that would preserve the reveal even further, because like there's that whole interrogation scene where he doesn't have the helmet on.
And I love that scene. I mean, I think that was like one of the first things that I noticed, and that's something that Mike and I talked about a lot in our past 2 episodes, was like, how much did we actually like notice while we were just watching it? And that was one of the first moments where I was like, oh man, like this is something that I really enjoyed from the movie, but I saw how it made sense for what you were trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's any of that could come back through something like that would be amazing. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I'd agree. That's like the moment where, I'm watching a fan edit.
Yeah. Well, there's only so much you can do with the material that you have. And, I think the advantage with some of the other fan edits that are out there for like the original trilogy is over time, more and more material has come available, from different sources and different edits. You're able to do a little bit more, but as far as like adjusting story, I think that's still something that's really difficult, because they're not giving us a whole lot of cut scenes.
Exactly.
On that note, though, you did add in some cut scenes. You had that shot of Kylo in the Millennium Falcon.
Yes.
What was your reasoning behind putting that back in?
So originally I wasn't going to do that. I didn't want to add anything in, and I realized when I switched the dialogue between Han and Leia after they found out they didn't have the map, I tried to make him say whenever she thinks about Luke that she thinks about this mysterious Kylo Ren person. And I realized I liked it when I heard Kylo Ren say Han Solo, because it was kind of a misdirect.
Totally, yeah.
What son would call their parent by their name?
I can think of a few, but it's that's very telling though that Kylo Ren also does that as well.
And I really liked it, if that was the way it was, and then he reveals himself, to the audience. And then you go back and you think like, whoa, this is weird. And whoa, he was in that ship. What was he thinking about? It was probably the past. And so I really felt like Adam Driver actually did some pretty good acting just in the cockpit. I like the imagery and the emotion in it. And so I wanted to preserve that and also get that misdirect out of it. And it just happened to work seamlessly. The audio was seamless to where they had put in, like they scored that scene and it went straight into the audio cue that was there. So I thought, why not? Let's throw it in.
I think that was probably a really late cut.
Yeah.
The way that scene transitions into the next one, I think that was probably really late in the process.
Jake, was your hypothesis that they did that because of like the getting Kylo Ren from here to there was kind of weird in the film? Like to be like, oh, he's outside doing this and now suddenly he's inside doing this now.
Well, kind of. I mean, yeah, because there are some other cutscenes outside of Starkiller Base, but I believe he was on like a ship, probably en route to Starkiller Base when they fired the thing off, because he was watching it from outside, I think, like up in a Star Destroyer. And then he got the report that the Falcon was there and he went down. I don't know. I think they should have left it. I really think it was a pretty poetic scene in a lot of ways, regardless, like even if they had kept it in the original film with the reveal being earlier, I still think it gave a little bit of background and humanity to Kylo Ren, because it wasn't necessarily like it could have been read as a sentimental moment, or it could have been read as something else. But I like that scene. I didn't like that they cut it, but I was glad to see it when you put it back in, and it fits so well that I think you're right. Like with the sound cues and everything, I think that was a pretty late cut. But I've seen the source for that video. I'm pretty sure you got that just from probably like the Blu-ray DVD, right?
Yeah, that was from the bonus features disc, yeah.
Okay, so what was involved, technically in getting that to match the rest of the movie? Because I'm pretty sure they had the numbers rolling on top and it seemed like the contrast was a little bit off. What did you have to do to bring that back into the movie?
So first, ripping it off the disc, and then how my like workflow goes is I created a lossless AVI file, and it's huge, like they're ginormous. And then I get the actual surround track from it, and so I'll drop those into my editor, and then it's kind of eyeballing using color correctors to try to get something about the same. And I know that there are people over at Original Trilogy that are actively trying to remove the timestamps. I just took the route of cropping and adding some sharpening and a tad bit of grain to it to try to, so I zoomed in, which makes it a little bit fuzzier, but then I tried to sharpen the image to make it sit. And it's really noticeable. Well, hopefully not really noticeable, but when he first walks into the cockpit, and it's the yellow background and just the dark shadow of his face, where you can kind of see it there more than the other scenes. But so just cropping and then adjusting color and sharpness to try to mimic something, somewhat like what you just saw and are going to see.
That's awesome. I thought it looked good.
Yeah.
Well done.
Oh, thank you.
On that note, are there any effects or edits that you really like to do? Are there processes that you really don't like to do?
So the most frustrating edit of that entire project was there's the scene after the interrogation where Kylo Ren is talking to Snoke, and Hux comes in, and then when Hux leaves, he walks past him, and in my edit he has to have his helmet on still. And so I had to, frame by frame, put his helmet back on his head.
Whoa.
And I think there were about 67 or more frames that I individually had to do that too. And, looking back now, I kind of laugh because there's easier ways to do it. But that was the most intensive edit for that project.
Wow, I don't even think we noticed that. Did we, Mike?
No, I didn't. I definitely didn't remark on that one.
Wow.
Awesome.
Cool. That's awesome.
I'm definitely going to go back and look for it now.
Yeah.
So there is one Easter egg I actually haven't told anybody, but there's one Easter egg in it. It's not a huge Easter egg, but I put something in the movie that's not originally there that I don't know if anyone will catch it.
Something in universe, or
so it's not in space, but
okay.
there is something to be seen. I'll just say that.
Oh, wow. This is a scavenger hunt.
Is it like something Star Wars, though, or is it something that you just kind of like snuck? Is it like E.T. in Phantom Menace?
Or is it like R2-D2 in Star Trek?
No, I was going to actually do that. I was going to put a Star Trek tricorder or whatever on one of the tables in Mons Canada's, but I decided to give it. I tried to put IG-88's head behind her counter, and that was just too much work too.
Oh man, yeah, we're gonna watch for this.
It's nothing profound, but if someone found it,
this is gonna be a great scavenger hunt. We gotta make this huge.
I'm gonna go frame by frame. I'm gonna have two windows open. I'm gonna have the real movie. I'm gonna have the fan edit, and just go frame by frame.
Hopefully, you won't be underwhelmed when you find it.
It's like an Easter egg in a video game. It's just worth it finding it, you know.
With favorite, it was probably on that one. I didn't like Snoke at all. I felt like the first time I saw him, I kind of died inside because I thought, oh, we're going CGI trolls, and it turned out he was a hologram, and so that I wanted it to look more like a hologram. At the time when I did it, I was really impressed with myself, and as I look back on it now, one of my favorite editors, he pointed out, is Take Me to Your Cinema is his name. He pointed out that the scan lines that I use, they don't change as much as they should. And I thought, oh, you're right. So if I can get that cosplayer, I will go back and redo all that. But but that was probably my favorite edit of that whole thing.
So do you have a large community of fan editors that kind of like bounce things off each other, or is this like a one-off, like one person commenting on it or kind of thing?
It's really up to the editor. So at fanedit.org, it's an international community, and so we have people from all over the world who have the same obsession, and so we present our projects to each other, and we'll upload clips on like Vimeo or YouTube and share those and ask for critiques. And then it's really up to the editor how much they're willing to collaborate. I really like to collaborate. So the hologram was actually just a challenge from some of the fellow members in the community to say, well, why don't you try it? And so I just started messing with it, showed them a couple clips, and they all liked it. So that kind of spurred me on to keep going. So for me, it's more, the edits are more about, I think, learning what I can do with a computer, how far I can push myself. And then the community is huge in that and giving feedback saying, yeah, that's working. Yeah, that's not working.
So you said this is not like a part of your daily life. How many hours would you put into it? It's probably hard to quantify if it happens over a large span of months or something like that, or years. But like, obviously you did it in less than a year for the Rogue One edit, because it's been less than a year. So like how many hours a day would you put into this after your regular life, I guess?
Oh, lately nothing.
Well, yeah, no shame in that. I mean, your project is for the most part, in its finishing stages or finished stages. I
mean, just new edits that are more ideas now. Like I'll have an hour maybe a day if I make time for that. When I was doing the Star Wars ones, I usually go into editing mode. I try in the summer, and then lots of late nights. I've probably edited for 5 or 6 hours at a time before, and I would shudder at the number of hours I probably spent on those edits.
Yeah. It's insane how quickly time can pass when you're in the box like that. You just lose track of time, forget to eat.
Which I guess could be like a successful dieting program.
Yeah. Start fan editing. Fanedit.org. Lose a lot of weight.
Fan edit the word diet, you get edit, you're good.
Oh my God.
Oh, I guess on the topic of the Heir to the Force edit, one of the last things that I was really kind of curious about, as far as things that you kind of brought into it, were some of the music cues.
Yes.
You brought in some pieces from The Force Unleashed and The Force Unleashed 2. What was the decision-making process behind that, and what was it like to redub the scenes that had music?
I think the original reason why I chose those soundtracks is, I'd grown up playing the Star Wars games, and they always either used synthesized versions of Williams scores or they, presented his score verbatim. And then I remember when I played the Star Wars Force Unleashed games I remember being excited, like that Star Wars excitement feeling. And I just listened to the cues and they're very William-esque, like they steal from motifs and stuff. And so they just felt right. And so I thought, oh, there's a lot of downtime in The Force Awakens where there isn't music. And I thought maybe to get some more of that Star Wars feel, not that it wasn't lacking that already, but that I could use some of those cues to add some emotion to scenes. And so, like, I think the first one I did it to was when Finn fought Kylo Ren. I used, I can't remember the track name right now, but I think it was the Junk Temple or something. But it had this low, brass that kind of signaled anger. That's what we were seeing, and I thought that would work great. And then it had kind of this chaotic flute line in it, and when he started to stab him. So I thought it could add some emotion. And again, music's huge to me. Like if I'm going to focus on something more than anything, it's music in an edit, because I feel like if you have smooth transitions and you have something that reflects what's on the screen, then your visual can kind of, it should be the best it can be, but as long as the audio is there, like your eyes and your mind will make it work. So I wanted to bring in some of those cues. The difficult one came in actually when Finn crash lands and then he's pulling off all of his stormtrooper gear and he's walking in the desert, because I had used that cue when Han goes to confront Kylo on the catwalk.
You did use a different music there, right?
I did, yeah. So that one is another one from The Force Awakens. The Force Unleashed. It was just one of those, it had a similar feeling, just being out there, lost. So I kind of found where the tempos were the same and blended them together and then let the other one take off. And so I had to rebuild the surround track for that because the rest of the audio had that in it too, like the original music in it. So I, got some sources of wind and other things, and I took other bits where Finn was breathing hard so I could drop those in to kind of line up where he's walking and breathing.
Oh, dang.
And then when the X-Wings show up on Takadana, is that how you say it?
I think so. I think you're right.
Yeah, so I actually used a cue from War of the Worlds there.
Oh, wow.
So I went and looking through Williams' library and like where was something that, so when Finn did his duel with the Stormtrooper, I wanted something that was percussive but also felt like Star Wars. So I found a cue in there in that and put that in. And that one wasn't so bad because it was kind of just dropping in, but with removing Poe from that, I had to rebuild some of the audio and the sound effects. And so some of it was easy, some of it was pretty hard.
Wow. I mean, you've already named two that we didn't even pick out. And it sounds like it was a lot more difficult than even I had anticipated. I would have never guessed with the desert scene that you had added any other like sound effects back in on top of it to flesh it out. That's incredible. Yeah,
and the catwalk scene later on, when I took that cue and used it when Han was walking up to Kylo, that's actually a combination of about 4 different tracks that I spliced together. And when he talked about Snoke, you heard the dark themes. And then when he started talking about Kylo's redemption, you'd hear the Force theme again. So trying to find where the tempos would match. And that's my favorite part of editing, to be honest. So that took the longest probably, but that's the most enjoyable for me.
Wow.
It's almost like you're reharmonizing a song. It's like a cover, like almost like a cover song in a sense, like where you don't want to play the exact same thing, but you want to get you're trying to enhance what's already there, I guess.
The themes, like that's amazing with the light and the dark. Wow. Like this is blowing my mind. I'm trying to think back and think how did I not pick up on that stuff? But I'm definitely going to be rewatching this edit just to pick out the stuff that you talked about and that Easter egg.
Yeah, well, good luck on the Easter
egg. Mike, was there anything else that you could think of on Heir of the Force before we talk about Rise of the Rebellion?
No, not really. Rise of the Rebellion is like kind of where I have some concepts I really want to dig into.
Please, go ahead.
there was the big debate between me and Jake on the show about Cassian's character and his actions in Rogue One and how you interpreted those actions. Specifically, like I guess the murder that he commits in the beginning of the series. On your site, you said that the kill is important character development and it's integral to his character arc, but it left a sour taste for you. Where does that sour taste come from?
I think that goes back to some of the original editing that I did, because I love Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy for the analysis on society and just morality and what is ethical and when we're placed in situations. So I love that analysis and the characters he created to do that, but the violence of it was too much. So I actually had to edit in the past. It was called the amended version, and where it just brought some of that violence down. So for me, it's like murder is just something that's really, I think, I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but I think when they talk about the Horcruxes, it's like tearing your soul apart.
Yeah.
So when in the way that it was shown, it was just so it felt like that.
It was cold-blooded.
Yeah, and so and here's this character that I was trying to, so I felt conflicted with him, which I understood why they wanted to do that, and I really liked that they put a different tone to the rebellion where they were almost like terrorists, to be honest. And so that was, I think, just because of my love of Star Wars and growing up with it, and it was always the heroes versus the villains, that when I saw a hero do such a heinous act,
mm-hmm.
and it was just so blatant, and it was, and the way that he did it too was so deceiving.
Did you ever watch X-Men 3, The Last Stand at all?
Years ago.
There's a scene where there's this one character who shoots spikes out of his head. I remember it in particular because it reminded me a lot of the Cassian scene, where this character, he's a bad guy and he's like trying to comfort some nurse or security guard or something like that, and he pulls her close and is like, shh, it's okay, and he shoots spikes out of his head and he kills her. But that was it struck me as really weird, like a PG-13 movie, that they would give a non-character such a gruesome death or something like that. And I remember specifically recalling that scene when I was watching the Cassian kill in that. But stemming off of that though, the question I was kind of having is it that seeing the kill, is that what leaves the so-called sour taste that you mentioned, or is it that it happens at all? When we talk about edits, are we editing our perception of the character or actually editing the character? Because branching off of that, your edit of Kylo Ren, you are changing the perception of a character. You're not changing who Kylo Ren is in that, but you're kind of changing how the audience sees him for most of the film. So are we changing how we see Cassian, or are we changing what he actually did in the Rogue One edit?
I think, sorry to digress, I think the Kylo one was more to change the character. That was my intent back then. When I took out the tantrums in that one.
Yeah. In
this one, I wanted to preserve that inner demon within him, but I feel like I did the same thing that I did to Cassian,
mm-hmm.
but I didn't know how to deal with it. And I don't know if you saw on the website, I had another version of the edit,
right,
that actually had Cassian, talking to the person, and then a stormtrooper was the one that killed the informant.
Oh, I didn't see that edit, but it was the No Mo edit or something like that.
That's the one that we watched.
Yeah, we watched that one.
And big shout out to Mo Sislak. That you can thank that editor for the whole edit, the way it goes. That was the inspiration. They said, take that out. So, and people like it. But I told them I'd give them a shout out.
Nice.
So, yeah, I feel like he's the one character in Rogue One that I feel like I didn't accomplish what I had originally set out to do with him. Because I wanted to give him the opportunity to be that character. But I think, going back to your question, I think it's what, in me seeing it, I think that's what was hard. And because I think just in society and life, when we see things, we're shocked by them. But when we know that they're happening behind the doors, we're okay with it for some weird reason.
That's heavy, yeah.
Yeah, and so Cassian, I looked at that way, and I thought, well, in my mind, I know he did it. So in my mind, I would rather not see him do it and just hear him talk about, because later on he references things that he's done and how
long he's been fighting. Yeah.
yeah. And so my hope was, well, if I took this out, then we could still hear it and imply it, but we wouldn't necessarily have to see the actual act.
Well, that clears a little bit up for us.
Yeah.
I think that was one of our biggest arguing points in that whole edit, because I think Mike and I have a very different idea about Cassian Andor altogether. And your edit just brought that back into the fold and gave us another excuse to argue.
It's very divisive, on like what Cassian is and what Cassian isn't. Where does Rogue One stand in like the franchise for you, as far as like, did you like it? Did you not like it?
I love it. I honestly, I remember coming out of The Force Awakens and being like, oh, this might be a bad thing. I went into Rogue One. I watched all of the, I said I would not watch the trailers, but I did. And then I walked in and saying, well, it looks like it's going to be good. But with low expectation, and I was blown away by it. And even though it wasn't what I saw in the trailers, but for me, it's right up there. I think it's the second best Star Wars film that's been made, personally. I would put it right below Empire Strikes Back. I'd probably honestly watch Rogue One before I would watch Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, dang.
I think it's in its presentation. I really like the score. At first, I didn't like it at all. And then there's a video that I posted in a blog that analyzes his music. And he went into the motifs and he actually like changed the keys and flipped the scales. And then there's this recurring theme that is from just ancient music. And so he's brought like history and Star Wars and then change it up. And I always butcher his name, but it's Michael, is it Giacchino?
Yeah, Giacchino.
We do it too.
Giacchino.
Yeah, well, remember the previous composer was Alexandre Desplat or something like that.
Yeah.
And he left the project when I think the reshoot started because he couldn't afford the time. So
but I still want to hear that score. I love that trailer.
Well, I don't think that the trailer was not him, I don't think.
No, I think it was.
Ben over from Venetia Ferry, he does a lot of trailer scoring now, and I think he knows the guy who did the trailer. The trailers are usually not scored by the people, like the actual composers.
Oh, well, I love that anyway. Yeah, that was really good. Anyway, does fan editing count as fan fiction?
Oh yeah, well that was kind of like the English major in me had some weird ideas or questions about fan edits in general, and like I guess it kind of stems off the last question that I asked, where are we changing the character, or are we changing perception of the character, and then into that kind of leads me into asking the question, like, who has license to fan edit? And the answer is clearly everybody, but I don't know. There's this essay that popped into my mind when we started this whole fan edit kind of exploration with you, Dig, and it was this essay. It's called "The Death of the Author," and it's by a French literary critic, Roland Barthes, I think his name is. It's like 1967, and it's basically just saying, like after an author creates something and releases it to the world, the interpretation of that piece is not the author's anymore. It's not the author's right to say like, oh, this didn't happen, or whatever. And there's a lot of like protesting against that idea. Is like, I think the one example in the book that I was looking through was Anne Rice. She wrote Interview with the Vampire. She would talk about the fan fiction that was written about her characters from that book, and was just like, she hates it. She doesn't want to read anything about her characters because she doesn't want to acknowledge that they're doing anything that is outside of her control. And then you have people like J.K. Rowling from Harry Potter, who loves fan fiction and stuff, and just like thinks it's great to read. Mm-hmm. So like the altering of a universe, like where does that come into fan edits? Does it have to remain true to a source material? Like if you want to change who Cassian is, or if you want to change what was said in a certain scene between Han and Leia, is it wrong inherently?
That's a good question. I think it's interesting. Where my mind goes with that is, we're in the era of very few original media presentations anymore, or stories, and we're doing remakes of cinema itself is fan editing the past. and but they're creating a new presentation of it. So I don't know. It's hard because I think in one sense, yeah, it's not ours. Like these weren't ours. They were something that someone shared with us. But I think because of the fact that it's a product, that I kind of look at it as I can buy a bag of frozen fruit, but I can pull out all the strawberries for my smoothie and leave the other stuff out the side. And I think because it's commercialized, for me personally, it feels like once I purchase it, it's mine to use and to interpret in the way that I would understand that it would be frustrating. And I'm sure it is for many to see their characters change. Kind of think of it like I have children, and I think of when I send them off to school, it's kind of like they're getting fan edited then. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think it's the intent of the producer, of the source, that if the person who generates the source wants it to be accessible to people, I think they have to realize that access is going to be interpreted. Like there's going to be a filter in the way that people are going to interpret it and the way people want to interpret it, and that it's going to cause people to have their own thoughts, which I think is encouraging. I think it's a good thing. I think that fan editing, we're kind of in that area of, we have very strict guidelines so that we do support the studios and those who are producing it, because we couldn't do our hobby without anything that they produce. So we're rearranging, but we're asking others to gain, go and support those who are making it, but we encourage kind of a individualized interpretation and then a dialogue about it. And I would hope that, one day if our little community, it's very large, but, in terms of everything else, that if more people knew about it, perhaps we would have more stories that we would be okay with. But at the same time, maybe we're fostering within ourselves so much criticism that we can't just enjoy anything anymore.
Oh, man. You're right. Yeah, we are fostering criticism, but I think it's healthy criticism. I think we uncover some really great pearls in that sense. I just think what you did with The Force Awakens and the way you manipulated Kylo Ren's character, I think I walked away from that being like, I wish that was the way it was in the film. And yeah, it's just for critical thinkers, it's like a really great mind exercise, I feel like, to examine your fan edits and and fan fiction in general, if we were to consider fan edit on the same level as fan fiction, where you're altering or changing or building on a concept established by an already existing work. Yeah, it's just really fun, I guess.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the key to it too, is that the whole community, it's just an obsession that we have that gives it, it's some people play guitar and get that. Some people play sports. Some people play pinochle. I just happened to edit. I don't know why pinochle came in there.
It's a good one.
I think fan editing is an interesting thing, and I think Star Wars really lends itself well to that, because Star Wars has always been a franchise built on not knowing the whole story. There's interpretation, there are holes, and I think I've probably said this 1,000 times in the show already, but for me, that's what makes Star Wars so enjoyable. It's not knowing everything and having the opportunity to have new stories or new characters or new ships, new bits of canon kind of weaving in and out over time. And I think when it comes to fan editing, you can kind of take that and you can move stuff around to open more holes or to close more holes, or just to give your ideas or your interpretations of what the best presentation of that story is. And in your edits, I really enjoyed that you really stuck to a main theme. There was a lot of cheese removed and all that, but I like that you went into it with certain ideas in mind. And for Rise of the Rebellion, I think it was pretty clear that you wanted to take the characters in the movie that were probably not as developed as they could have been and focus their storylines more. And I think that really benefited the story. And Heir of the Force, you took out Kylo Ren's tantrums, which was my favorite thing ever.
Wait, the tantrums are your favorite thing, or
taking them out? the taking out of the tantrums is my favorite thing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I have to see him like slash up a computer for no reason ever again, I'm going to be really frustrated.
It's funny because I feel like that got a huge laugh in the theater.
And I hated that. He's not supposed to get a laugh. He's the bad guy.
Yeah.
He's the bad guy of the movie. There's no menace.
Oh, what was your so Vader's pun? Don't choke on your aspirations or something like that? You kept that in, right?
Why?
So I will let you know. I love puns. so that spoke to me. That was it was a dad joke, true to form.
I think that's a lot of people were ripping on that, and like based on everything we know about Vader, people had like this weird perception that he doesn't actually like do that kind of thing or make quips, but like it's so Anakin, like so episode 3 and episode 2 Anakin to talk like that and say weird things, like, and everybody I think perceives it I don't know, it was good, so I'm glad you kept it.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, because when you look at it that way, like you just said, and then you go to The Empire Strikes Back and you look at the dialogue that he's having between Boba Fett and himself, like it used to be sinister, but now is it kind of both of those at the same time? Is it like he was talking to Krennic and when he tells Boba Fett that he won't be permanently damaged? Have
you read the comic books at all? Any like the Vader runs or anything like that? The new ones?
I've glanced at a couple of them. I really haven't gone into the expanded universe very much, and especially since Disney, I don't even know what still is and what they've decided isn't. Like it's all just Legends, I think they call it now.
It's the old expanded universe, and now we have the new stuff.
Pretty much everything before the Darth Maul Son of Dathomir comic is Legends. Everything after that is canon.
Okay.
The reason I brought that up is because I feel like the comic series, the first Vader one, is all I've read so far. I think it was like a 20 or 18 or 20 issue series, but that really reframed Vader for me as far as like what he can do from a dialogue perspective. And I know it wasn't written by any of the Star Wars writers for the films, but like these comic writers, I really feel like tapped into the prequel Anakin and kind of bridge that gap. And that's what the Vader arc. There's a new Vader arc that's going right now that actually shows what happens between episode 3 and episode 4, I think. But the first arc was just episode 4 to episode 5. And he's got a few puns in there. He's got a lot of quips. He's saying a lot of things that like I couldn't hear James Earl Jones saying, but reading those comics like got me to a point where in Rogue One, when he made that quip and everyone was like, that's so like corny, like it was just like, no, that makes total sense, like I can hear it happening. It works to the character. I
remember when episode 3 came out and I read what was it, Labyrinth of Evil, and that was like the prequel to the prequel film. Mm-hmm. I remember actually kind of starting to like Anakin Skywalker, and then I read the book and just they focused on his internal, I think his whole symbol was like this white dragon inside that was dying. And then there was a book after it that was like Rise of the Dark Lord, and it kind of like it bridged the gap for me between prequel Anakin to how could this person become, what we know of Darth Vader. So in a different way than you're saying, but kind of like you're saying, how connecting those. Mm-hmm. That was really the only expanded universe that I've really delved into.
All right. Well, I have a couple more technical questions, because this side of it just fascinates me, because I have absolutely no knowledge of how any of it works. But I love watching videos of people playing around in video editors and things. Some of the color correction that was done in Rise of the Rebellion.
Yeah.
Primarily the skin tones on the CGI characters of those that have passed, and then the eyes on Vader in his scenes with Krennic. Is there any insight that you can give as to like the process behind those edits and why you did them and how that was accomplished?
So the Tarkin one was for just trying to get, like, everyone looked a little too pink. And I know that you had mentioned that one of the pictures I posted, like his gray looked green in it.
Yeah.
And like, oh, that's a good comment. But, I tried to A/B it on some of the original film too, that at least what I have, I don't and who knows if I have the correct color presenting it at me through the videos that I have. But I wanted something that made him look less artificial. And for me, it was just adding some yellow back into his skin. That's what I was seeing in the different, like when I watched the video, and then especially with Leia, she seemed like she wasn't so pink. And so with doing that, it's I used a secondary color corrector filter. And what you do is you can highlight a color range. So I just dragged my mouse across their face, and then it selected all those different color tones. And then you can selectively change what the color expression of those are. And so I, took down some reds, added a little bit of yellow, and then it does it to the whole scene. So you have to use another filter called a cookie cutter to where you can isolate.
Okay, like a mask.
Yeah, exactly. So you're creating an on-the-spot mask without actually creating the mask and dropping it on top.
Interesting. And then the eyes?
And the eyes. So the eyes, the red eye thing, it was too much. And I think you had said that it looked a little too much on the other side too. I tried a bunch. Like I tried going completely black, and that just seemed off. It might be a little darker than many would like, but there are scenes where like I wanted that like lifeless Vader.
Yeah.
And I feel like the red eyes was like, I don't really get into the Rebels stuff, or I don't know if he was in. I don't know. He wasn't in Clone Wars, of course not. But
well, actually,
well, not with his helmet, right? So I wanted it more like what I remembered the original trilogy, and by that I'm not I know he had red tints in the New
It
Hope.
wasn't as noticeable though. Like it definitely, like, if you go back and watch it, most sources of the original trilogy that you watch, you're not going to see a whole lot of red. It has to be like very specific lighting. Maybe in a couple shots you can get a bit of it, but yeah. No, I think overall it was definitely fine. Like I think that's a complaint that very few people are going to have watching it. It was just something that I happened to pick out of your notes and kind of noticed as I was watching that scene again. And it's just interesting to me the way that different people perceive Vader's mask. Like even if you ask people to just like draw a picture of Vader's mask, a lot of them can get the general, like the features of the mask down, but a lot of people will change how narrow it is versus how wide it is. Like different people see it in different ways. Some people think it's, this really big thing, and that was, comically overblown in Spaceballs, but other people see it a lot more narrow, and those interpretations are always really interesting.
I'm looking at your blog post about the Tarkin scene. You mentioned he looked off. Like in general, does he? What was your reaction in the theater to seeing that? Were you like skeptical about it at first, or could you go along with it?
Well, I knew it was coming, and I'd seen it on the small. I think did they put him in a trailer? There's some snapshot that I saw before going in, and I knew he was going to be in it.
There were some articles, I think, but I don't think they saw that in any of the trailers. But I think we had talked about it before we saw the movie for sure.
Did you find it distracting?
Yes and no. I mean, I thought it was the best, when he came on screen, that was the best digital person that I had seen up to that time. I was kind of basing it on Clue from Tron.
Yeah.
And that was like something was off with his mouth, and I just couldn't, like something in his eyes were lifeless. But I feel like they got some more life into his character and how they did it. But I think there's still something with, I don't know if it's when the actual actor, I forget his name, when he moved and then digitally following along, he looked really wet to me.
Yeah. Slimy. The people I was seeing it with, there's some of us who I guess thought it was like definitely Uncanny Valley, kind of like, oh, like this is a little off. There's something weird going on here. He kind of looks like a Polar Express character. But then there's like, I think the wife of one of my friends who was there, she had never seen a Star Wars movie before, I feel like, and did not think twice about the person on screen in that scene. Like it didn't strike her as odd. So that to me was like, I felt like anybody who knew that, the character, the actor is dead was like, oh yeah, there's something up about this. But then people who had never had any association with Star Wars were just content to just be like, yeah, it looks fine.
Great. And I kind of wish they did a different actor or just had some long shots. I wish he wasn't on screen as much as he was.
Yeah.
That's what did it for me. if he just had smaller segments, I think the
Right.
power of having his character there would have been there without the distraction.
It was surprising how much they used him. I'm sure once they figured out that they could pull it off in the way that they did, they're like, well, why not just keep using it, right? Was there anything else as far as like your edits go that you wanted to kind of like touch on or hit on?
I mean, not really. I'm just again honored and shocked that you that you spend these this amount of time to talk about this, and it's been really awesome. I just want to say thank you for that. And it's a fun hobby. It takes tons of time, but it's nice to know that someone's getting some satisfaction out of it, because it's more about the process for me.
The review's soon to be good.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, since your post and I've been trying to actually do some social media around it, that I think 2 to 4 people each day have been requesting it, and so it's might not be a lot in the big scheme, but that's more than I've had for even Heir to the Force when it first was out.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just exciting that people, I guess, get the exposure to, hey, you can have this a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so.
Do you find it like a difficult dance to kind of promote it at the same time as like trying to keep it not like too exposed to the world, like to like, Disney or whatever?
Kind of now, yeah, because I know George Lucas actually embraced it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Disney stuff, not many people fan edit Disney movies because we're not too sure, And so I try to be anonymous, but I know there is a guy that I think his name's Dustin Lee, like he's promoted his Hobbit edit, all over the place. And he's had other places like I think Screen Rant, or I don't know which place did it, but he had people do articles on. He did a Rogue One edit, and he just I think because we explicitly just say if Disney ever asked us to take it down, we would,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was Disney or Paramount or anyone. If they ever had an issue with it, it's not something we're ever making money off of, and it's just something to share with people who have already purchased the item.
Right.
And so, yeah, but it's still. I have a moniker. I don't like. I tell my friends about it, but I don't have a Facebook. I tried to do that once and didn't want that like connected.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Dustin Lee, he's open. He says he does video production.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw his model, I thought, okay, I can make a WordPress and just make sure that I'm covering my bases and following the rules that I know of. And then just if there's ever a request, being willing to say, yeah, this is yours. You own the intellectual rights. I'll abide by your demand. So.
What do your friends and family think of it? Have they watched it? Are they fans of Star Wars?
It's an oddity. So no one knows what it is when I tell them about it. And that's kind of a joke within the fan editing community, is that when we talk about it, no one really understands what we're saying. And my family thinks it's neat. My immediate family thought it was neat. And it's it's one of those hobbies that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So there can be negative effects from that. But
I totally get that.
yeah, it's when, just like everything, if it's done in moderation, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just hard to get anything done in moderation in the fan editing world.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people wonder why Mike and I don't record this podcast more often, and it's actually not because we can't think of anything to talk about. It's really because we don't want our girlfriends to break up with us.
we need places to live.
Exactly. And I've got kids, and trying to manage being dad and being obsessive nerd that's an interesting pair.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see it's doing so well.
You got fan edit of the month as well,
Yeah.
from fanedit.org. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really neat. And honestly, I think that was more, people were just excited about the collaboration that happened. And much of the edits in there, originally I was just going to have it be, he's got a helmet on his head. He doesn't say he's Han's son. Like, that was my edit.
Mm.
And then everyone I think they saw their ideas reflected in the outcome. And so it was kind of, consider that's like the fan edits community's fan edit of the month. I just happened to be the one that was doing the actual editing of it. So.
Do you see any more Star Wars edits in your future?
After watching the trailer for The Last Jedi, I'm a little worried from like an aesthetic point.
How do you mean?
Well, it kind of had that look like it might have been shot in 48 frames per second. So it looks really crisp. It looks very artsy. And I know it's 150 minutes. I just read that recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff in it. The color grade that Rian Johnson did I'm sure there's many editor that they're already thinking, how do I get this not to be like that greenish yellow thing he's got going on?
He likes that.
Yeah. So, definitely I'll be looking at that one because people ask me, well, what are you going to do since you cut out Luke in The Force Awakens? So, seeing if I can tag that onto the front or if I even need to do that. And then just trying to make the two work. I don't know. We'll have to see how the movies come out. I really like Ron Howard, so that was nice to see that. I think he'll bring a little bit more of a serious tone. I think you guys get that I'm more of a serious kind of person.
We really wanted to talk about the I think that was one of the episodes that kind of got lost in the mix, was talking about the turnover from the handing of the reins over to Ron Howard for the Han Solo flick. But yeah, no, I imagine someone who is not a fan of the cheese would not be into what's his name, Lord Miller.
Lord Miller,
doing
yeah.
Ace Ventura Han Solo, as some people were calling it.
Well, no, they did the Lego movie, is that right?
Yeah.
And Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, 21 Jump Street.
And I love the Lego movie.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, but the humor fits there,
Exactly.
It's expected.
I just really want to see Han Solo talking out of his butt like Ace Ventura.
No, stop it.
I need to see like the behind the scenes footage of like Lord Miller being like, all right, Alden Ehrenreich, come on, just bend over and make a fart sound or something. God. Like
that's probably why he went to Kathleen Kennedy. He's like, you know what these guys made me do?
I'm being degraded on this film set daily, Kathleen. You need to fix this right now.
This is a bit of follow up. We haven't done a normal episode in a little while, but it looks like they've actually reshot pretty much the entire movie.
Yeah.
It looks like they have not used as much of the footage as I anticipated they might have. So it's crazy, but that's nothing compared to what Ridley Scott's doing right now for his new feature film. So
oh my God, yeah.
Gosh, that's going to be nuts. I can't wait to see how that works out.
Do you have any other fan edits that you are a fan of yourself, like that you would point listeners to like go check this out now?
Well, my personal editor that I really take inspiration from, I mentioned earlier, is Take Me to Your Cinema. He goes by TM2YC, which is the acronym of that name.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a Star Trek Vengeance that he just did, I think a year ago or so. Mm-hmm. And it's just really crisp, really clean, just really phenomenal editing work. And he just finished a Man of Steel edit that really, he did an edit of Jonathan Kent's death scene that I never liked the original version, and what he did with it, I actually went back a couple of times and rewatched it because it was just like, oh, that's how it should have been. But he's really good at color, does a lot of color correcting, and just his really good at collaboration and then presenting really polished work. So all of his stuff, he's got a lot of stuff. It's on ifdb.fanedit.org.
Yeah.
But yeah, Take Me to Your Cinema. The man behind the mask is kind of going back to that. Does fan edit equal fan fiction? He did a 2 series of Star Wars called The War of the Star, and it's like Grindhouse version.
Whoa.
And it's really gritty, and it's like you went into an old raunchy cinema, and there's blood and guts in it. It's crazy.
My God.
Like he takes the trilogy and turns it into 2 movies, and it's very, very interesting.
That sounds worth a watch. Wow.
Yeah, it's really incredible what he actually can do. He changes characters completely, and just some of the stuff he does in it is pretty fantastic. It's not my personal thing, but it's inspiring.
Yeah.
I know that there's a editor named Hal that he actually has done it. He's currently working on a version with some other editors of The Force Awakens that he moved the Star Killer base sequence to the end so that everything, like they fail in a sense at the end of the movie.
Oh.
Yeah, and his prequel trilogy is pretty good. I mean, there's a lot. There's like, I mean, Harmy, you mentioned, he's not technically maybe a fan editor, but his restoration work is amazing.
Yeah.
Adawan, of course, is, I mean, if there's a fan editor that's above anyone else, it's him. That doing the Star Wars Revisited.
I think we're going to do his series next.
I think he spent 10 or 12 years, I think it was 10 years on Empire.
Wow. That's what I want. I really want to sit in that, like, I want to watch that with the edit list. For your edits, I definitely wanted to hold off on reading exactly what was being changed because I wanted to see if I noticed. But for the Star Wars Revisited edits, I really just want to sit there with kind of a checklist of what is going on and to kind of evaluate like how the changes he's made and those kind of things.
Yeah, I think it's like over 300 something edits. Just insane and phenomenal at the same time.
That Wampa costume, I'm really aching to see that. I can't wait to check it out.
Sadly, that one didn't make it into the...
Oh, it didn't? Oh, darn it. That's all right. I was looking at the edit list and I was seeing like, oh, shoot, like he did the Wampa scene again? Cool.
Yeah, he was working on that for a while. He has a Facebook. He was kind of putting updates up, and it looked pretty cool, but he just couldn't get it to work.
If anyone's interested in fan edits, we, like over at fanedit.org, like if you join the community, you don't even have to fan edit to be part of it, but you can actually give people ideas and they might even make an edit based on your ideas. But we do like fan edit of the month that highlights a certain number of fan edits that were submitted to our academy for review, which is just a panel of editors who have shown that they have good editing skills. And then they review, and then those edits go up on that IFDB site. But we do, every month we have a poll that people watch the various edits that they own, and then they can say this one's the best. So it's pretty fun.
It is a cool community. That and Original Trilogy, both really cool places to talk about Star Wars and how it's put together.
Definitely. And I don't mention them enough. So sorry, Original Trilogy. I do love you all. I don't go there that often. But.
No, it's okay. It's good to find like one community that you can be really active in. I think that's more valuable than spreading yourself across a couple and not really participating.
It's fun. Anyone can do it. And if anyone's interested, that's the thing about the community, that if you just ask questions, like you can get into it. We're actually doing this. It's called a consecution, or I think that's how it's said. But we're doing like a series of short animation edits that the whole community is doing a 5 to 15 minute edit. And then we're, as a community, submitting those together to create like a panel of work of animation edits. So there's different themes that we do sometimes.
Well, awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope that we don't have any like crazy cool listeners that are able to use your voice pattern and information to triangulate your location and send the mouse to your home. But thank you so much for doing this and for those edits. They're really fun, and it was a really cool experiment from us just to watch that, because apart from Harmy's his what do you call them, fixes? What's the terminology?
Restorations.
Yeah. So apart from his restorations, I don't think either of us really had any real experience behind edits. But now, if you look at my Plex, there are quite a few that we've got to start watching. So
yeah, it's fun to get a different look at the same old thing.
Well, awesome. The show notes, we're gonna have a ton of links to everything that Dig's done. We got trailers, we got links to his posts on fanedit.org and Original Trilogy. We'll have links to all of those awesome recommendations that he made for other edits. It looks like the man behind the mask did a really cool edit for Prometheus that makes it like an actual prequel to Alien. So I'm going to check that out. That looks sweet.
That'd be nice. We can find you, Dig, at digmodification.wordpress.com, or is there a better URL?
That's the best place. Like if you're interested in the edits that I've done, that's the best place to go. And then you just look at the menu, and then there's like an edit gallery that you can see. I've only got 3 that are completely done right now. And then, but in the blog, I post in different ideas that I might have. Most of the idea sharing happens at fanedit.org, but yeah, there's a contact page where you can ask about the edits and for requesting, and then if you own the source, then I contact you back. So, there is a Twitter. I don't really know how to tweet,
Yes, you do. You're probably our most engaged fan. It's awesome talking to you on Twitter. You have really good ideas.
Well, it's all about both of you, honestly. I did not tweet until you guys started tweeting. I said, oh, I need to be a tweeter now. And really, honestly, thank you to both of you. It's just been a really fun experience. I've never had something like this. So I really appreciate that you would take the time to review them and to share that with others and to talk to me for so long. And that I think you're both awesome people, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully I didn't geek out on you too much.
No, man.
No such
we
thing
are happy
here.
to geek out at any time. And if you keep editing, we will keep reviewing them.
Awesome. Actually, I think my phone is going to die.
This is perfect timing. All right. So we'll let you go and let you get back to your life on the West Coast in that abstract location that you've not named.
And if you ever want to talk again or talk about music, I'm a big music person too.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Nice.
No, we'll be in touch, man. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, so that was the interview with Dig. It was all right, right? It was okay.
It wasn't bad.
It's good. He's nice. He's a nice guy. It was a good interview.
Pretty nice fellow. Yeah.
Good to have him in our garage.
That we share together. We share a garage together.
I really do wish you'd move your extra tires out of here, though. This isn't the kind of space that I thought we were trying to cultivate.
I've been delaying putting those snow tires on the Mazda. All right. Check us out at banthafodder.fm/episode/24 for all the show notes that everything Dig reference and everything like that. You can find us on Twitter at Bantha Fodder FM. You can find me at Mike Commentate. You can find Jacob at Jacob Tender. What else?
Big stuff coming from us someday.
Someday, big stuff coming from us.
That's what I like to tell people. What are you working on? Oh, big stuff coming someday.
Lots of big stuff. All right. I think I'm going to play some guitar. How about I play some guitar? Is that all right with you?
Sounds good. Play us out.
All right, I'm going to play us out.